Hello, everyone. My name is Richard, and today we will be planning to talk about planning. Low-hanging fruit joke, I'm sorry. I am Richard Shaw, Analyst Manager here at Odoo. Here is the QR code for you to ask your questions at the end. If the QR code doesn't work for you, please pay attention to the P in planning. It is case sensitive, so you need to make sure it's uppercase should you use it. That said, it will be also available at the end, so don't worry if you miss it. Now, so first off, for those who do not know, what is the planning application? It's essentially going to be a tool you use to essentially plan your shifts when it comes to your resources, mostly employees, but of course you can also use equipment, for example. Now, we'll of course show more later. So what is new in 18 specifically? In the past, when it comes to the Gantt view, you had a selector for the time, so week, day, month, year, etc., which was a bit limiting because you couldn't really, it was just the day. So if you were in the future, you would change the view, it would not necessarily jump to where you were. The new date time selector is actually much better, where you can actually specify this week, this month, this quarter, etc., and it will jump to the time frame that you are in at that moment and time. You can also specify a time frame or date range, as you can see here, which is quite nice. Now we also have this feature here where you can zoom in and zoom out, with the far left-hand side being the most macro level, so zoomed out all the way, with the far right-hand side being the most micro, so year, month, month, day, weekday, and day and hour. We also have another mode called sparse mode. It's essentially a way for you to kind of see your resources and their utilization overall. This is the collapsed view where you only see the resources, in this case people. Also there's some equipment in here as well to see, okay, how much time are they allotted or how much time are they spending? Also, what is their full utilization? I'll go more on that later. Here is essentially the capacity, and the later is now actually. So as you can see here, if it's green bar, for example with Abigail, she's fully utilized, 100%. If it's orange, she's underutilized, and if it means she's working less hours than she can theoretically. And if it's red, they are overutilized. You also see a really dark purple above me. It is purple, it's not black, which means there's no utilization possible. And it's usually for open shifts that are not assigned to anybody, but also equipment and tools. Now, the sparse mode expanded essentially is going to show you every single possible resource that has something booked at the moment and what is their utilization essentially. So for example, in Abigail, she has X number of shifts, so you're going to see X number of lines based off of the different kinds of roles she can take. But, well, also, additionally, you have the email capability. So most of us have an iPhone or some kind of a smart device, and we'll probably always live in it checking out our calendars. So when you send an email to inform your team, your staff of their missions, what they need to do that day, not only can they view it, but now they can add it to their calendar, which is quite nice and easy because we're always on our phones anyway, probably running around Odoo Experience to see, okay, where am I going today? So it helps you stay up to date all the time. We also have the mass edit capability because we all make mistakes or changes happen, where whether you need to change the shift by 30 minutes or so, or you need to move it to a different time entirely, or even assign somebody new. And now, in the past, what you had to do was to assign it one at a time, but now you can essentially make changes in mass, whether it's the specific shifts, or following shifts, or all shifts. Now, what you see on this image here is the form view. When you're opening up or creating a shift or editing a shift, it's the expanded view with all the details you see inside. Then you have the same thing, but on a like a smaller view when it's actually on the Gantt itself. You have the ways to see or do the same thing, but smaller. I'll show you, of course. Now, what's new also is that we can link a rental application to the planning module. So essentially, whenever you rent something out to your clients, it will show up, if you wanted to, in the planning application. One moment. But I'd rather show you than talk about it, so let's go to do a demo. Obviously, this is the main dashboard that you're very familiar with. But before we go into the planning app, let's just tell a story about what my business is. I run a company called Shalby Recording Company. My name is Richard Shalby, not a real name. I am the owner, CEO, etc. of the business. And I have a specific working hours here set to standard 40-hour week. This is super important because this is how Odoo understands how much time I can theoretically be working that week in total. Now, in this instance, the general week is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, obviously, I'm not working those 12 hours. It's just the opening and closing time because it's a rental stop. I should take a step back. The company I own and operate is a video recording camcorder recording company. So people can come in, rent some recording equipment from me, return it, and that's it. Now, of course, we're a small enterprise. We don't have very many people. We're only the 5 of us, with me being the owner, of course. We have Sally Mander, my assistant to the manager, so she will help me with managerial duties. We have John Nee, who is a senior staff who's been working around for a while. He's full-time. We have his little brother, Ken Nee, who's an associate, who's in university. And of course, Samantha, who's also associate in university. Now, John Nee, Sally Mander, and myself, we are full-time, so we also have a set schedule. While Ken Nee and Samantha, they have different schedules. They're very flexible. Their schedule can change every single day. Maybe mostly quarters in school, but you never know. And so because of that, I also have a flexible week. Now, this is new. In the past, you couldn't do this, but we now have a flexible schedule where essentially you don't have to specify a specific time frame. Sorry, I've been talking all day. So in this instance, when you're setting up the week, you can specify, okay, when are they working, or what are the normal time frames they need to work. But flexible implies that there is no specifics. Again, this is new. You can specify how many hours theoretically they can work. I just set 40 because it's just the easier way to do it, with an average 8 hours per day. Now, what I also will do in this instance is because we're a shop, we always need someone on hand at all times, so our lunch breaks are not necessarily the same time every day. So for this reason, if we take a look at the 40-hour week working hours, I don't have lunch specified here because I don't need to specify when they need to take lunch absolutely. It's flexible. They can make their own decision. And this way, we always have someone on staff during the busy lunch hour. Now let's go planning. So as you know, today is Odoo Experience, as was yesterday and today. So what we need to essentially do is schedule who's working today. As the owner, I'm usually doing opening, with Sally Manor doing closing. But because I'm super interested in what's going on at Odoo Experience, I'm actually not working. So as you can see, we have an integration with time off where, because I'm off, it's grayed out. So you can't actually assign me anything because Odoo will tell you, hey, by the way, Richard's busy, time off, he can't work that day. No problem. This will also impact things in the future. So if I try to book myself at a slot here, it won't let me do it. Too much singing last night, I'm sorry. So let's actually book a shift. We're going to focus on next week specifically. So we're going to do a opening shift here. And we're going to set this for next week on the 7th. Now, if you want to do recurring, I recommend you specify it only on a day, simply because if I were to extend it, theoretically that means I'm working nonstop for 60 hours, which is actually not the case. I will be working each day the same shift, so I'll set it to each day, just for Monday. And if you want to do recurrency, very easily, as you see, what happens is with the shift templates, which I will show you more later, you can create default templates that you're going to use on a regular basis. So for example, I always have an 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. manager shift. This is where I'm opening, I'm checking my register, putting cash in, and making sure everything's clean and ready to go. We also have a PM shift for the same thing that Sally Mander mostly takes over. Now, all allocated time is 9 hours, but there's a 1-hour lunch in there somewhere. Now, if I want to do recurring, it's quite easy to use this repeat icon and specify how frequently, whether it's days, weeks, months, or years, and how long it lasts, forever, until, which then gives you a date, or number of occurrences. So let's just do until, and we're going to set this to the end of the month. Save. So as you can see, if I move over, I can see that next week's shifts are here. They're open shifts, they're not assigned yet, so I need to do that. But let's look at the shifts first from the higher perspective. So now I'm looking at it year by month. Whether this is useful, it can really depends on the length of your shifts. As a small business, I'm looking daily, so this view may not be as useful for me as a whole. But you can kind of get some understanding of, okay, are they fully utilized for that time period? Now, sorry, we go down one lower, so we're now looking at month and day. So we can see a good weekly view of this every day next week. Now, if we dive in further, we will see the week and the day, and we can go even one more further to see day and hour. What also is new is actually this infinite scroll bar, which will go on indefinitely depending on the time period you're looking at. So in this case, I'm looking at the month. So you can see here, I'm looking at this range, but I could just specify this month, and you're getting only this month specifically, and again, I can scroll. Now, I forgot to mention something specifically about these changes that we're seeing in the Gantt view, is that actually this is true of every Gantt view, not just planning. So that's the kind of power of Odoo. When we make changes or improvements in specific views, it impacts every single application, such as planning, projects, tasks, and manufacturing. So let's go back to today. That's actually what this icon does. It jumps to today in that instance. Early in the month, so we're fine. We're going to zoom in to today. And then we can also expand to see the utilization. So this is the expanded view, as I mentioned before. So we have all the different open shifts. And if we scroll down, we have the different individuals. So John Nee, for example, is theoretically 75% utilization because he's working 9 hours for this shift. Then we have Ken Nee as well, down below, who's working morning staff, and as well as Sally and Samantha, who's working different shifts as well. Now, if we wanted to condense it, that one, we can see what I was talking about before, where you have each person, how many hours they're working for that period, and their utilization. Now let's expand again. Let's look at next week. And it's actually auto plan. Oops, let me prefer this view. Now we're looking at November. Oops, one moment. Getting lost here. It's so much information. And we'll just auto plan. And there's no open shifts to assign, so let's actually create some. I prefer this week. That's what's going on. So now what we have is we've automatically planned them. We can also undo them very quickly from here. What's happening is that Odoo is going to look at people who are available, who can essentially take a shift depending on their availability. Now, because we have specific schedules, John Nee and Sally Mander will be assigned automatically to these. I will not be because I'm actually off next week because after 3 days of Odoo experience, I need a time off, and I haven't taken vacation in a long time. Now, you'll notice that John Nee and Samantha have not been automatically assigned because they have a flexible schedule, which means we can't automatically assign. We need to do this manually, which we can do very easily right now. So we have a morning staff shift, which we will then assign to John Nee, or Ken Nee in this instance. And we're not going to have it recurring, just because every week something could happen and change. Now, quite easily, if we look at Ken Nee, we can actually click Control, or hold it, and drag his shift down and make those changes. So he's going to work mostly every single day this week because he's off and he wants to make extra money for that time period. Now, for example, let's say we want to delete one. It would be very easy to do. Now, if we come in and edit, and let's change the time period just a little bit, because on this day, he needs to leave early. Save. Now, as you notice, it's not actually changing anything because it actually hasn't been published yet. So if we publish, they're all going to get these emails, including open shifts and sent. So now if we make the change, as you can see in the Kanban view, we can very easily just specify if we're going to do this for this shift or all shifts. And of course, this is not going to happen because Ken Nee's too young. He cannot open, so we're not going to give that to him. If we do the same thing, if we open it, let's actually change the time period. You see the same thing applies here. Quite simple and straightforward. Now, if we were to then rent something, quite easy. So we have the planning, the rental right here. And I have two products specified at this moment in time, the aluminum stand and the Panasonic camcorder. We have this planned service feature here, which you need to have sales installed in order for it to appear, and it needs to be a service. And essentially, you need to specify what kind of resource it is in this instance. So I'll actually show you before I go ahead and do that. Go back to planning, configuration, and materials. You can see here we have the specific products with the role that they will take. In this case, they're more or less the same, and we have a default role, and you can choose a color, but that's just more from a visual aid perspective, nothing super important to worry about. And what will happen is, because of this role, you can essentially have it automatically show up in the planning. So, for example, I want to know when my different equipment will be out, when they'll be returned, what's the utilization, etc. Well, not utilization in this instance. So let's go rent, create a new one. Odoo is our biggest and only client. We will quickly add the products. We can actually use the catalog because it's a cool feature. And only can you rent one of each. Go back, follow the breadcrumb to the sales order. And we're going to change the dates from the 14th to the 18th. There we go, so 4 days. We're going to actually update the rental prices. And here we go. So Odoo is happy with the dates and the prices. We will confirm. I won't go into the rental application. There's another talk that will dive into that one. So feel free to ask us questions at our Test Our Services booth in the Odoo Village. So let's pick it up and validate. And you can see from the smart button up top, it's automatically there right away with 96 hours. Now this Odoo is renting it for four whole days from 4 o'clock to 4 o'clock, from the 14th to the 18th. And you can see it here. It's both defined here, very quick, easy. You can also see it in the planning module altogether. So aluminum stand, let's go to the future, because it is not this week, but it is here, as you can see. Now what's going on, also, if we were to look at the other shifts as well, they have the horizontal bars, not the horizontal, the diagonal bars. It's because they're actually not assigned and they're not published yet. So we can do that very easily by dragging and dropping, assign it to a specific person if we need to, and let's do it all shifts. Now, of course, Johnny is overutilized. We can actually then change it manually to somebody else. Let's give this to Samantha. And what is nice is that you actually see the roles and the title that they're associated to, so it makes it really easy for you to know, okay, this is the right person to assign it to. And we will save. Voila. And of course, we do not want Johnny to get exhausted too much, so we'll actually drag these all over and just vary what they're doing. And boom. And let's publish one more time and send. Great. Now they're all there. We don't have to worry about them being unavailable. But let's see what they see. Let's go to the settings module very quickly and to developer mode, because this doesn't have an email sent out set up for that yet. So developer mode, technical, and emails. We can see the emails that we've got sent out, and this is what data essentially sees, Samantha. Now, of course, if we do view your planning, we jump into seeing the calendar view. You can see, okay, this is my work schedule, very busy. Now, if we were to actually go back, let's create another shift very quickly, an open one, in fact, for the future that they can take. Actually, if we go to configuration settings, we can see whether they can unassign themselves shifts or take, and also shift with other people or trade. So if we were to go back to what she sees in the, she can say, actually, on Wednesday the 16th, I cannot do that. I'm unavailable. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see the available shifts. So if she changes her mind later, she can easily jump into that. And of course, as we saw in the email before, she can add it to her calendar and presto, easy enough. Those are most of the different improvements and changes to planning. It's again mostly used for shifts. Every application has their own Gantt view, so they're all linked in different ways. And you, of course, as you can see here, we have an icon specifying that there's a conflict, so it informs you of what's going on. Very simple, very straightforward. If you have specific questions, let me just go back. Please feel free to ask them now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you.
When would you recommend planning and when project task assignment via Gantt? What's the differences in use cases and functionality? Should planning ever be used for multi-project management?
It's a hard thing because Gantt view is in all the different applications as well, or most of them. I would probably use Gantt view more for longer term work. Now at Odoo, we don't necessarily use it too much because our employees essentially will plan their own days. So using the Gantt view in planning doesn't, or sorry, the Gantt view in project doesn't make much sense because it's not like we're going to every day from 9 to noon work on a specific project. But that's just us. Maybe in your case you might do that if you know for a fact that someone's working for a specific time period. But you can also just use it from a general perspective of, okay, for these weeks, you're going to be using, or days or hours, working on this one project. I would look at planning more from a shift perspective. So I chose my use case specifically because I'm an employee or a business owner that has employees that come in every single day into the shop, and it makes more sense to use planning in that instance versus more longer term work with tasks and projects.
Is it possible to export FTEs over a given period?
Export full-time equivalents over a given period. I need more context on that. If you want to talk to us at the services, test our services area, let me know. We can be there and talk about it more.
Okay. The synchro with Outlook, is it fixed? During a synchronization test, it deleted all my schedule on Outlook and we did not receive any feedback following our test.
I wasn't aware of this an issue, so we can look into it, open a ticket if necessary.
Yep. Does the occupation percentage in the sparse mode consider the percentage of allocation time over a period?
It's based off of the scheduled hours that they have to work, and also there's an employee contract as well, so it takes some calculation there. It's a bit more complicated than my brain can handle today, so I'd probably have to recommend going to the product owners in the services booth for more calculation on that point.
Is there a link with the skills application? This would make it possible to replan tasks, roles onto employees with the same qualifications and more availability.
Not at the moment, as far as I'm concerned. It is something that we've provided feedback for in the past. But at the moment, because if you do apply skills, I mean, it's nice to have, but it's also limiting in a way, because if you prevent people from taking specific shifts based on their skills, they can't learn that skill necessarily. So at the moment, no, but we can see how we could work on it in the future.
Why is the duration on the working schedule is always 0, half, or 1 day and not exact? Could we do it exact by Odoo standard?
I'd need to look at how that field works exactly. I think it's just a calculation automatically. Most people just work half days. I don't have the answer to that question either, sorry.
Is a link to the production schedule planned? This would ensure that we have enough resources to launch productions.
I don't know on that point. As I mentioned, there's Gantt view in almost every single module or app. And so you could use the Gantt view in that instance. I'm not sure you need planning with manufacturing, but I don't know if it would work as well as you'd expect. But we can take a look into that.
Is it possible to publish without sending an email like in V16?
Don't think so. I mean, it publishes automatically. I mean, you could do. I mean, you could disable the email, specifically the email template that's used here, so it doesn't get sent if you don't want to. I mean, is there a reason why you don't want to send an email to inform them of the shift? I would ask more questions on that point specifically. But looking at it, no. But I also challenge the need a bit, but I'm sure there's a use case.
Is it possible to see all employees in a department even if they don't have a shift planned?
From here, no, because I think we want to limit it, because imagine you have 100 employees, but if you add a shift, you can see all the employees here. Theoretically, what model is this? This is using that one. So no, you couldn't do that here specifically, but I think you could filter on them if they're. You can filter on them and see in the future and the past, I think. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Is it possible to plan rental products by serial number?
Yes, actually. What you would do, if we look at my materials, that's here. So I'm going to have of each product by serial number here. That's essentially what I try to do, and what role they fit. So that's what you'd set up here, and then now it's not linked to serial numbers, so you just need to export your serial number list and import it here, but that's a super simple task to perform. Yes, okay, you'd have to update it every time you get a new serial number, but in those instances, I guess the question is how often are you getting new products with new serial numbers that need to be added here? But yeah.
Right. Can we plan shifts based on other things than rentals? I would like to assign inspection jobs for the things we deliver.
Um, I think you might want to just use field service for that one. Uh, I'm not sure you'd want, I mean, you could try it in planning, but if I'm a field tech and I'm going on site and I need to perform some kind of shift, I can see it based on traffic or maybe taking longer at different job sites that maybe the planning wouldn't be followed because there's a difference between software and reality.
We have time for like one or two more.
Okay.
What's the advantages of combining rental of material with planning?
I think it's just having one place to look at it because it's a different module. I mean, you also have a view of planning of the rental plan at the same time. So it's just extra added value. In fact, actually, you can't really have Gantt view here, but it's in reporting. So.
Do you plan to use AI to make the employees planning?
I don't know. We're still very early stages when it comes to AI. So, I mean, the world is our oyster. So it's an interesting idea. We need to see the variables we want to look at. But theoretically, it's possible.
Okay, one little one. How do the flexible hours work?
Flexible hours, essentially, if we go look at the employee module and jump into the working schedules, the whole point of flexible means there's no specific point, start and end time that they can work. So if you want more questions on this or have more questions on this specifically, come to this test our services if you want to see how we work and behave. And the goal is to get you live in 2 hours. Right, thank you.